And so, Mother, could you share us just a bit of your story? You know,
Yes.
how did you get where you're at today, wearing a habit, and, you know, from the beginning?
Well,
So,
we're talking about vocation. What's
yep.
a nice Jewish girl from Brooklyn doing in this? What is this? My goodness. Well, I did grow up in a Jewish home, and we waited for the Messiah all our lives. And I was in my 30s before I ever heard that he came to earth 2,000 years ago. And I thought, you got to be kidding. We're waiting for him. He's the only hope the world had. He came here already, and he left, and we missed the whole thing. How could that happen? And I was led to Christ as an evangelical Protestant. I gave my life to Jesus Christ. I spent the next 18 years trying to save Catholics. So there you go. And then I realized through the grace of God and many years of study that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who I learned nobody could look at and live, you couldn't see God. He not only took on flesh through the Blessed Virgin and became man, but he went a further step of condescension and became our food in the Eucharist. And the night that I entered the church and the host was placed on my tongue, I knew, even though I watched other people receiving the Eucharist and they seemed to be okay, but I knew that I could perish on the spot because the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was being placed on my tongue. I knew I could perish, and I took that chance, and I didn't perish. I sobbed the rest of the Mass. I don't know what happened. And now I am the most Jewish a Jew could be, to be Catholic. And it is the fulfillment of Judaism and the full measure of Christianity. And I am a happy, happy, happy camper.
Now, how did you decide after you became Catholic that God was calling you to the religious life? And I wonder if you could also share the story of the little boy who came up to you at that one conference,
Really?
you know, about your sweater and why aren't you?
Wow, you remember
I
that.
cannot forget that one. I wouldn't want
I know,
our listeners to be deprived of
I
that
love
one.
that. Well, when I was 19, single and Jewish in New York, and knew there were two people in the world, Jews and non-Jews. That's it. But the news came out that nuns had permission to shorten their habits to knee length, and it was the middle of the miniskirt era. So I thought it was a religious response to the miniskirt era that they could go to knee length. But it stabbed my heart because I said, these nuns, these women are in the world to affect the world. And I thought, alas, instead, the world has affected them. Now, I'm not saying that was the case, but I wasn't Catholic. I wasn't even a Christian then. And it was my deep and immediate loss. I lost what wasn't mine, had nothing to do with me. Since I'm Catholic, since I even started looking into the Catholic Church, the only thing I wanted to do was be a sign to God in the world and wear a habit. I didn't want to be a nun. Forget that. Because they put you away. You can't be I ran 2 companies in New York. I had 3 marriage proposals. I come on, the world is mine. You're not putting me away. Forget that. But I just wanted to be a sign to God. And so one day I was doing a conference with Catholic Answers where Jason and I worked together. I was down in Orlando, and I needed to leave for the plane. A family came up to me downstairs at the vendor's spot, and they had a baby in the carriage and a 6-year-old boy and the parents, and they had other children at home. And the little boy came up to me and he said, "Where's your jacket?" Because when I spoke, I wore a turquoise suit with a flowered blouse underneath. It was quite hot. So I took the jacket off, put it on the chair, and now I have this blouse on, round collar, sleeves to here, loose. And he said, "Where's your jacket?" And all of a sudden I said, "What's wrong?" I felt immodest. I said, "Well, it was hot, so I put it on the chair. Is this okay?" He said, "Yeah, I was just wondering." And I said, "Well, what's your name?" And he said, "John Paul." And I said, "Oh, what a good name." And I sat down and he stood up, which made us exactly eye level. And I said, "John Paul, what do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up?" He said, "I want to be a construction worker and a Trappist." I said, "Oh my." And we exchanged a few sentences. And then this little 6-year-old, look, I have a chill telling you this right now, looked straight in my eyes and he said, "Why aren't you a nun?" I tell you, and I thought of St. Augustine. Many of you probably know St. Augustine. You know, St. Augustine is walking the beach after his conversion. He's on the sand and he's trying to figure out the Blessed Trinity. He's going nuts. And he comes across this little boy, about 5 years old, and the little boy is filling his little pail with, well, actually, no, he dug a big hole in the sand and he's pouring water into the hole. Then he goes back to the ocean, fills up his little pail, comes, pours it into the hole. Back to the ocean, pours it into the hole. St. Augustine comes up to him and he says, son, what are you doing? And the little boy said, oh, I'm putting the ocean in the hole. And St. Augustine says, it's impossible for you to put the ocean in that hole. And the little boy looks up to St. Augustine. He said, yes, I know. And it's just as impossible for you to figure out the Blessed Trinity. This is a true story. And we know that the boy was an angel, a plant from God. Well, this little 6-year-old at the conference, when he said to me, why aren't you a nun? I thought of St. Augustine with that little boy, because physically, I don't know how it happens, but my heart went up to here. It physically jumped. I thought it would come out. I couldn't breathe. And I said, I was so incredibly thrilled. I don't know what I was. I come, really? But I didn't want to be a nun because you can't put me away. You know, I don't want to do that. I was assistant publisher of a fashion magazine. I didn't be a nun. And I said to him, I don't know, John Paul, you think I should be a nun? He said, yes. I said, why? He said, because nuns are good and they teach children. I said, do you have a nun teaching you? He said, no, we homeschool. My mom teaches us. And I thought I had 30 seconds to leave for the plane. I thought I'd take John Paul on as my consultant. And I said, John Paul, you really think God wants me to be a nun? He said, oh, yes. I said, how will I know? And he said, ask him. So I looked up at his parents and they went, and I hugged him and I left for the plane looking for Blessed Mother to appear for me in the clouds. And it was, I've never forgotten that story. And there are other incredible stories. And each one thrilled my heart so, but I'm not the type. I'm not the type. I'm not going to be a nun. I'm just not the type. And God wouldn't want me. I know that. I'm not holy enough. He wouldn't want me. I know that. And I don't like discipline. He wouldn't want me. And one day, people called me absolutely out of the blue. They were in New Orleans. I had spoken at a conference there, and I came home. And they called me, and they said, Rosalind Moss, my given name at the time, they went through a list of 200 names they had as their speakers for Magnificat. And they came across mine. They'd never heard Rosalind Moss, never heard me before, ever. And they stopped at my name, and this woman said, I don't know who she is, but she's called to the religious life. And they called me, and they said, Roz, we have nothing to do with this. And she said, my husband and I knew as soon as you walked into our house, that's where I stayed, that you were called to religious life. And I said, well, you didn't tell me. They said, we knew you weren't ready. And at that moment, I don't know why, but I put down the phone. And for the first time, I had tears streaming down my face. And I looked up and I said, Lord, you would really want me all to yourself? You would want me? I couldn't believe it. It's the closest, Jason, I've ever come to ecstasy in my life. I was in that stage for 3 days. And it took years after that for me to go the path and find God's will. And I visited orders and everything else. And several people said, you need to start your own. So I'm ornery, so I started my own. And I tell you what, I still feel like a New York Jew, but I'm in a habit. And everywhere I walk, I tell the sisters, our apostolate is to help restore God's design for the family. But everywhere I walk, I only need to exist. We only need to exist. I come out of Walmart, woman comes up to me, excuse me, ma'am, is you a nun? Yeah, you's a real nun? Could I shake your hand? I said, no, but you can hug me. I know. So many. Another one in Walmart. Sister, I don't want to offend you. I said, you can't offend me. It's impossible. She said, but I have this question. She said, what's with the black? And I said, well, it's the color of death. She said, well, that's what I thought. I said, because we die to self to give our lives to the world. And I could tell you a million stories. One little girl came up to me. Are you Jesus's mommy? Do you live up there with Jesus? It's so magnificent. It's so magnificent. I tell you, I would wear this 24/7. People said, it'll get old. Oh, I can't believe I get to put it on every day. And people come, women come, and they say, how do you know you're called?
Yeah.
How do you know you're called? I said, I can't even tell you I'm called. I don't know that. I answer for you. Except God has done so much for so many years. If I said he didn't call me, I'd be dishonoring him. I never felt a call. People do. People hear his voice. They're flooded with grace. They hear a call. They do. I never did. I never did. I had all these little John Pauls coming up to me and people saying you need to be a religious, and I mean, tons of those. But I never felt a call. I said, God, you're telling all these people, but you didn't tell me. But there's a verse that I love. Delight in the Lord, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. And I thought, oh, brother, if he gives me the desires of my heart, I'm in trouble. But then I realized it says, if your delight is in him, he'll give you the desires. He'll put them in, and then he'll work them out. I could never imagine being religious and not feeling stuck or limited. And I tell you, I've never been so free. I've never been so inwardly powerful. One of our patrons is St. Francis de Sales, and he said the whole of life is to be yourself and be that well. And when you're yourself and you're that well, you are free. You are free. So I am living a fairy tale life. I'm a happy camper. I can't believe that I get to do this. It has nothing to do with me. Everybody comes up, no matter where you are on the street. No matter where you are, they come up. Sister, would you pray for me? Would you do this? They don't say, who are you? My name is what order. They don't care. We represent God to them. It means God is here. I was walking in Utah once, big conference, and walking on the street, about a mile between the hotel and the cathedral, and a man came up. He was probably in his 50s, with shorts and a tank top, and on a motorcycle, and a helmet. And he drove right up into the sidewalk. I was waiting at the light of a big intersection. He got off his bike and he said, oh, sister, can I hug you? I said, yes. And we hugged. And he said, oh, thank you. He got back on his bike. He rode off and he said, it's going to be all right now. God is here. It's going to be all right. He shouted down the street as he rode. You see? Because that's what we do. We're assigned to God in the world, and an eschatological sign to heaven, that God hasn't left. That's what we want. We're just hangers for God is all we are. We're hangers for God, to show people that he's here, that he loves them, and he hasn't left. So has God called me? I can't look back and say, no, that would be kind of stupid to deny what he's done. But all I have ever done is want to love him more. If you say, well, Mother, do you love him now? I say, I don't know. I want to love him. I want to love him more. I can't tell you how much I love her. I can't say I love God a lot, because I don't think I do. I want to love him more. I just keep growing. I just keep, by his grace, I just keep thinking how I could be closer to him and give my life for him. And he's done all this. And I can't tell you how happy I am.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that little clip, but if you want to see the whole episode where this came from, just click the link here. And in the meantime, we want to invite you to help us share this message, and there's a couple things you can do real quick. Number one, if you like or comment or share this video, YouTube will actually show it to more people. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell. We release videos every single day, and you'll be notified as soon as those come out. If you want to help us also to spread this message, you can support us at patreon.com/Jason Evert. That helps us to create these videos and show them to the whole world. God bless.